Hello everyone, I'm Baggy, and today we'll be taking a deep dive into My Little Pony fanfiction and the new My Little Pony infection trend. I'm sure you've already seen these videos popping around, so I collected as much information as I possibly could to see if I can add anything that you might not already know. I will also be recreating my own version of the infected ponies, so stick around if you'd like to see that. And without further ado, let us begin in 2010, where our deep dive begins. My Little Pony is a show about Twilight Sparkle, who is a student of Princess Celestia, the ruler of the magical land Equestria. The princess gives Twilight the task of learning about friendship and sends her and her assistant, a dragon named Spike, to Ponyville. There, Twilight meets a number of companions including Pinkie Pie, Rainbow Dash, Rarity, Applejack, and Fluttershy. These 6 would become the stars of the show, including Spike. However, I never really liked him, so I always forget him. Sorry, Spike. The show became increasingly popular due to its quality animation, character design, and well-crafted storytelling. It was created by Lauren Forst, who had a strong background in animation and storytelling. Lauren worked on the character Julie from the MTV animated television series The Max, before becoming an animator at Turner Feature Animation and Warner Brothers, where she worked on films such as Cats Don't Dance, Quest for Camelot, and The Iron Giant. I haven't heard of Cats Don't Dance, but Quest for Camelot and The Iron Giant were major movies in my own childhood. I absolutely adored them, and it makes a lot of sense that Lauren Forst was involved. She worked on Powerpuff Girls and a number of other shows before finally working alongside Hasbro to create My Little Pony. Leading on with My Little Pony, another reason the show gained such widespread popularity was the community and inclusivity it offered. A lot of people felt they could relate to at least one of the main characters, and more often than not, their attributes would resonate with them. The rise in the brony community added major factors to the community. It offered a space for people to connect, discuss, and share their love for the show, and this sense of community was a significant aspect of the popularity of the show, but we will get more onto that later. Another reason My Little Pony was so popular was the nostalgia for many people, even myself. I grew up during the time that the 2010 generation of My Little Pony aired. However, prior to that, I would watch the older My Little Ponies that came out during the 80s and 90s. I had them on tape, and the main ones I remember were The Smooze, which came out in 1986, and A Very Minty Christmas, which came out in 2005. So My Little Pony was by no means a new concept. I even had toys of them, however I'm not sure how much they correlated with the characters in the cartoons. I know for sure I had ponies that were never mentioned in the show. However, the 2010 generation always had a character for each toy they produced. So with this old My Little Pony in mind, people who'd grown up with My Little Pony were willing to give the new generation a try, and clearly they enjoyed it. Overall, My Little Pony Friendship is Magic's combination of quality animation, relatable themes and characters, positive messages, and sense of community it fostered contributed to its popularity among adults. However, we can't ignore the giant elephant in the room, the internet. ARPANET was created in 1969 and provided the foundation for what came to be known as the internet. Email systems dated back to the mid-1960s. Since 2015, Google has been the most popular search engine with more than 70% of worldwide online search requests handled by Google. Google is great and all, but it was only the building blocks of the internet we know today. There were 2 major websites that spurred on the culture of My Little Pony that we know, and that was YouTube, and more importantly, 4chan. 4chan was created by Christopher Poole under the username Moot in 2003. He was only 15 years old at the time. Most forums on 4chan were anime related. Before the end of 2003, several anime related boards were created, including hentai, anime/cute, hentai alternative, anime wallpapers, yaoi, and just anime. It was pretty obvious which direction 4chan was going towards, and legal action was threatened to be taken as more illegal and inappropriate posts were being uploaded. 4chan was briefly suspended in 2004, only a year after it had opened. In response, Poole simply moved the site to a new domain, as you do. Following 4chan's return, several non-anime related boards were introduced, which included TV shows and video games. And this, my friends, is when My Little Pony began to surface. While discussions of My Little Pony originally started in the comics and cartoons board, My Little Pony had its own board created in 2012 to discourage people crowding up other boards. As we mentioned before, My Little Pony was growing more and more popular as time went on. Most people on the site just reacted to episodes and discussed them. However, adult jokes were already being made on 4chan on the first thread that ever mentioned My Little Pony. From what I can find, this was the first, quote, rage moment
I was offended.
the Brony fanbase faced. The message behind Feeling Pinky Keen. In the episode Feeling Pinky Keen, which is Season 1, Episode 15, Twilight learns that the rest of the town believes that Pinkie Pie has a pinky sense, in which her body reacts in different ways as warnings to certain events. A few bronies believe that the episode promoted a religious fundamentalism over rationality. They even threatened to leave the show and stop supporting it, but once Force explained that the show wasn't trying to promote anything, and the bad lesson was bad communication, the brony fandom calmed down. It's quite interesting how reactions like this still happen all the time, every single day. This sense of cancel culture is no new thing, even in 2012. I won't go into all the controversies that My Little Pony faced because of bronies' reactions, and I specifically say bronies and not just My Little Pony fans because they were the ones that were most active on 4chan. But if you'd like to read up on them, I will link the source in the description. Most of them are pretty minute and just simple disagreements with management and themes. I just want to say that from what I understand, not all bronies are inherently bad. They definitely have a bad rep from people like Max Vierce and Chris Chan, but not all were like them. Many bronies maintain their brony friendships they made and preserved online. Bronies created their own web pages named Equestria Daily and Ponychan to allow and promote discussion between bronies from all over the world. These sites gave bronies a space to share fan art, fan fiction, music, and stories. A quote from an interview on bronies carried out by Pavol Koznak reads, "I used to be a cynical jerk, kicking puppies, building my career on the expense of others. I'm sure you can imagine. Then, one of my colleagues I fancied made me watch ponies. Since then, I'm trying to be helpful, no backstabbing anymore, and I became the type of person I used to ridicule the most, an outgoing optimist. Before I thought, that's just naive. That's a sign of no life experience. Now I know it may be a deliberate choice to be better." Not all bronies were creepy men and teenagers. Some of them were just people that liked My Little Pony. But of course, when adults and children are in the same fandom, things might not always run smoothly. DeviantArt was another site that hosted fanart and fanfics. Founded in August 2000, DeviantArt is the largest online social network for artists and art enthusiasts, and a platform for emerging and established artists to exhibit, promote, and share their works with an enthusiastic art-centric community. As great as DeviantArt is, there seems to only be a few categories the art on there falls into. Amazing, detailed art, clearly done by professionals, fetish art, and bases. And I know, I'm sure there's a lot more really fantastic work, but you can't deny the really random stuff you can find on there. And as I imagine, you're hardly surprised, My Little Pony fan art exploded onto this site, which also fits into these categories: breathtaking art, fetish, and bases. So although this was very long-winded, My Little Pony would in no way be as popular and well-loved as it is today without these major platforms that the fans use to share their passion. Now, we've touched on fan art, but here's where we finally start to get onto the main topic of this video, My Little Pony infection. But I must make you wait a tiny bit longer and tell you about the history of My Little Pony fan art. This is believed to be the first comic about Celestia and Luna, created in 2010. In 2011, Rob Cakeran, 53, made the fanfiction My Little Dashie and uploaded it to FimFiction. The blurb reads, "When your life is as dull and grey as the world that surrounds you, the mundanities can make it all seem meaningless. Sometimes all we need is a little colour, or 6, to reintroduce us to what truly makes life worth living." The fanfiction is about a guy who is bored of his uneventful life and is starting to lose hope that his life will ever get better, until he finds a box with a pony inside. I only skim-read the fanfic, but from what I see, it's really sweet and feels like a normal coping story. Fallout Equestria is a post-apocalyptic fanfiction based on the Fallout and My Little Pony series. It was originally published by user KCat 2011 on filmfiction.net. It is split into 5 volumes totaling 620,000 words across 2,000 pages. The story follows the adventure of a clever young unicorn mare named Little Pip, who departs her underground stable and treks across a toxic, ravaged Equestria that was devastated by a war 2 centuries past. Initially in search for her fellow stable dweller, Velvet Remedy, Throughout her travels in the equestrian wasteland, she struggles to cope with the realities of post-apocalyptic life, whilst doing what she can to restore hope and light to a land plagued with suffering and darkness. I think it is truly fascinating the dedication that fan artists put into their work. It's really inspiring for someone like me, who makes Five Nights at Freddy's fan comics. It kind of feels like My Little Pony fandom walked so other fandoms could run. Then came along My Little Pony meets CreepyPasta. CreepyPastas were a collection of short horror stories written by people all over the world. They were uploaded to the website Creepypasta Wiki, and anyone could access these. I remember back when I was 12 trying to get my own creepypastas published, but it was a lot harder than I thought it'd be, and my stories always got rejected. The word creepypasta first appeared on, you guessed it, 4chan. It's a variant of copypasta from copy and paste, another 4chan term which refers to blocks of text which become viral by being copied widely around the internet. Unlike copypastas, creepypastas are all horror fiction and also encompass multimedia stories with creators using videos, images, hyperlinks, and GIFs alongside text. So think of creepypastas being the first analog horror, or ARGs. People were convinced Jeff the Killer and Slender Man were real. However, they were both internet hoaxes that people then made stories about, which turned into creepypastas. When My Little Pony met creepypasta, it was a whole new ball game. I'm not sure if this is the original upload, but in 2015, user Ako Gameplay uploaded a video titled Creepypasta 1 Pinkie Pie Smile HD. The animation was made by DeviantArt and the music composed by Fuzog. If you haven't seen it, it looks like a normal generic My Little Pony episode of Pinkie Pie singing about how she wants to make her friends smile, and then she goes and beats them up very graphically. Rainbow Dash saves the day by attacking Pinkie, but Pinkie comes back completely unharmed and obliterates the rest of her friends with a fire blast. It truly is wild. But don't worry, Fluttershy shows her who's boss, and then gets burnt to a crisp. So it really did turn out to be a dangerous thing, having grown adults be a part of the same fandom as young children. You'd think they were aware they'd have some form of responsibility to at least put a warning. The next creepypasta was Cupcakes. Unlike the other video, this has a warning at the start saying that it contains graphic violence and gore. This appears to be a continuation from Smile. After Rainbow Dash attempts to save their friends from the crazed Pinkie Pie, Pinkie tortures Rainbow Dash and cuts off her cutie mark and the rest of her body until just her heart remains. At the end, Pinkie Pie stitches Rainbow Dash back up and kind of taxidermies her. There is a fan story where she turns ponies into cupcakes at her cupcake factory, so I imagine this was the demise of Rainbow Dash in this creepypasta. Our next example of creepy My Little Pony fan works is ponies sliding into a box. And it was a trend of the My Little Pony characters being cute and stuck in boxes. And it was innocent at first, but then the creator 2Snacks came along and released a video where the animation is really high quality and appealing to look at, but the ending is far from it. The ponies originally slide through a box of candy, but then Celestia slides through a box of nails and bleeds to death. There is another animation by the name of Little Miss Rarity, and among the others, I remember personally watching this as a young child. This animation was by Little Miss J. It started off as a fanfiction on a Tumblr blog, and was later adapted into an animation series. It started with Twilight Sparkle removing Rarity's horn, which granted her access to Rarity's memories. While working on her sewing projects, she was scratched by her cat, and in reaction threw it against her wall, killing it. Horrified and feeling guilty, she attempts to bring her cat back to life. I'm not too sure how she's doing it, but I think she took the heart from her cat and put it in this pony doll to bring it back to life. Correct me in the comments because I imagine I am completely off. Rarity seems to want to try more tricks, but on living ponies, and Twilight catches her doing it, and Rarity knocks Twilight out with her sewing machine. She then gets a heart branded into her chest, and I believe it was by the doll. She's arrested, and while she's tied up, this demon pony that resembles the doll crawls out of her stomach. But you know what? I'm gonna stop there. I read the comments and someone explained that the story is about Rarity being a masochist and records all her actions and enjoyed being tortured by a guard. And I don't know, it's all kind of messed up. But what I appreciate about this one is that it's not trying to emulate the actual cartoons. When I watched this as a young child, I knew what I was setting myself up for. And so it was my own fault that I continued watching. I knew it wasn't an official cartoon, whereas the other ones feel like traps to traumatize people, especially children. This one I feel has artistic elements, and even though I don't understand, I think it's a relatively cool animation. Moving on, we all know what the pony jar is, so I'm gonna swiftly move past that. Pony.mov was another freaky animation that I also remember, and I hated these animations at the time. They made me so uncomfortable. From what I can remember, there wasn't anything inherently wrong with it, apart from shed.mov. In this episode, Fluttershy is an evil murderer, and you get the gist. So now we've looked at the history of My Little Pony, the fan base, and the fanfictions. This leads us straight to 2024. My Little Pony Infected. There has been a huge resurgence of My Little Pony horror and gore content, which seems to have upped its game since the early days, and we can obviously guess why. The people making all this content were the people traumatized by the content made by other people back in the day. We are now the adults traumatizing the generation below us. Again, I'd like to add though, all these infection AUs are clearly not imitations of the show and are not intended to lure in young children to then expose them to gore and adult imagery. This is clearly not meant for children or the easily disturbed. The infection trend started from Season 7, Episode 20 of My Little Pony, A Health of Information. The episode consists of a pony named Zecora falling into a lake and inhaling pollen, which forms orange spots all over her body, and for her to feel unwell. We later find out that she has caught swamp fever, which makes ponies cough bubbles and eventually turns them into a tree. A tree. As terrifying as that is by itself, people have made their own alternate universes of this idea. I'm terrified. On December 13th, 2023, a user, Osuhat, I want to say, or Osushat, posted a slideshow on TikTok describing an alternate universe of My Little Pony that had been infected by a flesh and mind-eating disease called pestrobia. It starts out as a normal cold and is spread incredibly easily and quickly. The disease quickly advances to changing in behavior, bruising and decaying of the skin, sagging under the eye, and even hostile behavior. In some advanced levels of the disease, the ponies can mutate, having their limbs stretched and elongated with unhinged jaws. So far, Twilight has been infected, however her insanity is at -12, but she is more or less docile. Applejack is pretty far into the disease, however not as far as Twilight, and her sanity is still at 33%. Rarity is very far gone, her insanity is at 100% and her sanity is at 0. She is only 1% conscious and incredibly hostile. Sadly, Shining Armor was a victim of an attack and has also been infected by the disease. There are a number of other ponies that are so far gone that even their sheets are distorted and messed up. Discord is he's just gone. It's hard to make out his statistics, but let's just say you wouldn't want to look up at night and see him crawling on your ceiling or scraping at your door. Starlight Shimmer was the first to be infected and is basically just maggots now. There is no helping her. The list goes on, and you should really check these out. After this AU became popular, many people also developed their own stories and ideas. Soon enough, horrifying videos were being created on people's own AUs. Another amazing alternate universe was Swamp Fever, created by etc. They've made some of the most viral images to come out of this trend, which is similar to the freak drawings I used to collect from my school Pinterest board, which my art teacher hated. Smile Virus is another AU which feels pretty similar to the ones I've mentioned before. One that really stood out to me was 100 Days, created by 100 Days Later. This story is fully illustrated and I absolutely adore it. It feels like a comic and I really connect with stories told in this way, so out of all the infected AUs, this is the one I felt really immersed in and inspired by. I want to feature some incredible art for this trend too, this is insane. Look how good these are. One thing I want to say too is I'm kind of sad that this has been labeled as a trend. I'm fully aware that that's exactly what it is, but at the same time, it's so different from the usual trends out there on TikTok. It feels kind of similar to animation memes on YouTube. It's just not lip sync to a song or dance outside your car. Real creativity went into this, and I really hope that they keep going and the interest for it stays high for as long as possible. I hope to see more trends like this in the future. So, after all that, here is my fan art of an infected pony. I guess this one is closer to the Swamp Fever, but I kind of wanted a blend of all of the infected AUs put together. I really hope you enjoyed the video, and thank you so much for watching. If you like this kind of video, please leave a like and suggest what other topics you'd like me to cover. See ya!